Going to replace this inducer motor on a Trane XR90 furnace. The old one is making a lot of noise, kind of typical of bearings going bad. It's easier just to replace the whole thing than try to mess with just the bearings. So here's what it sounds like. So getting the old one off, there's a bracket on the exhaust pipe that goes up and out. There's 3 mounting bolts that hold it onto the furnace, one on the top, one on the bottom left, and one kind of mid-bottom right. Then you have the high limit switch there that's got to come off. Obviously, the wires and the harnesses have to be pulled off. So you start by loosening the nuts. Most of the nuts on here are 5/16 nut driver, or the this bottom one I had to get a little wrench in there. I couldn't get my nut driver in there. And then the limit switch, which is going to hang onto this thing. Don't lose any of the pieces. It'll, if it gets too hot, if it's not working properly and it gets hot, that thing will shut the unit off. As far as the wires go, I'm going to get rid of some of these straps holding everything together, and those little harnesses. We'll just pull those apart, get some of these wires out of the way. I'm going to start with the wires by taking the ground off. Just, follow it to wherever it's mounted to. The new wires, you got your hot, you got your neutral and a ground. This one has a clip on it, which I'm going to end up snipping that off because it needs to connect to this motor wire above the harness there. I'm going to snip it off pretty high because there's not a whole lot of wire to work with, and we'll splice those together towards the end. This clamp, I don't know why this guy whoever put this in kind of went nuts with the silicone, but get that clamp off and then get the drain, that little drain plug on. Looks like something's been leaking some water there a little bit, probably that hose clamp not tight, but loosen those up and pull that drain hose off, and then get that clamp off the top. Loosen it up real good so you can slide that clamp up and over. Get rid of some of that silicone there. I'm not sure why you did that, but kind of got it everywhere. But anyways, get the clamp up and out of the way, and then we can pull the motor off. Excuse me. Just kind of wiggle it back and forth, yank on it, and don't lose any of your screws or anything. Here you can see silicone guy went nuts with the silicone. Usually there's a gasket. I'm thinking that looks like regular silicone, which is probably not the right stuff to use other than it being gobbed everywhere. So clean that off real good. And what you want to do after you get that cleaned off, if you don't have a gasket, we use some high temp silicone gasket stuff. This Permatex stuff here, max temp, to hold up to those temperatures. It does get pretty hot on the furnace side of that motor. So this has a groove to accept that ring. You can see there I'm kind of pointing to the groove in the middle there. I'm going to put a semi-small bead in there. You don't need a ton of this stuff, just enough to make a seal like that. And then we'll slide the new motor on, being careful, not to bang everything up like I'm doing. So slip it up onto the exhaust hose and then kind of wiggle it on, and you can feel it when you get it in that little groove there, and get your holes lined up, and then just tighten up those 3 bolts real good, holding it onto the furnace there. And then we'll get that clamp back on, tighten that down real good. And then the old one has a cap. There's 2 different applications for this. So that's the drain plug, as it were, a little bit of silicone to hold that on there so it doesn't vibrate loose or anything. So put that on the port that's not being used, and then put the drain hose back on in the clamp and tighten that stuff back down. Just kind of going in the reverse here as far as getting it hooked up. And then don't forget to hook up the hose underneath, or you'll have water everywhere. Ground wire right back where it went. The old one was not a big deal. The white common has a little harness on it, so that just clips together, or you can nut them together like I'm doing with this hot motor wire. I'm just going to nut them together because chances are, so many years from now, this one's probably going to go bad. These parts are made to break, so I'm just going to twist these together real good, get a little wire nut on there, and then get that limit switch hooked back up nice and snug on there. Like I said, that thing will shut the unit off if it gets too hot for whatever reason. Then we're going to tidy up the wires. A little bit of electrical tape. I don't think you have to get crazy in here. We're going to listen to it again, the new one. Purrs like a kitten. So if you need any of these parts, this is the old part number. I'll have the new part and some of the other stuff in the description down below, so I hope that helps.